so glad that everybody is with us today, and I would love to introduce you to Myra McGovern, who is Vice President of Media at NAIS, which is the National Association of Independent Schools. Myra, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Avery. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you all and to learn more about Brookstone too.
Yes, yes. Well, as I was mentioning to you before we got started, I would like for you to introduce to our families and our parents what NAIS is, what their mission is, and the work you do, because I know we as a school are so grateful for that work. So just explain it a little bit more to our friends and families.
Absolutely. Well, NAIS, the National Association of Independent Schools, is a membership organization, membership association for independent schools across the country and even some around the world. So we've got about 2,000 members,
Oh, wow.
and they are really very different from one another. There's a huge range of schools, from like really, really tiny schools to very large schools. We've got co-ed schools and single-sex schools and day schools and boarding
Hmm.
schools, schools with all different kinds of philosophies. And so what NEIS does with this really hugely diverse group of schools is really just to serve as a hub of connection.
Hmm. Hmm.
So one of the things, about independent schools, they are independent.
Right.
They're governed by boards of trustees. They have a unique mission.
Yes.
So sometimes there aren't a lot of other independent schools in the area.
Correct.
So
Yes.
what NAIS does is help schools connect with others in the community, in the independent school community, to talk about ideas, what they're trying to do, challenges that they're having.
Right.
Also collect data from
Hmm.
about schools, school operations,
Hmm.
to help
Hmm.
schools improve how they function and function more efficiently.
Right.
And we also monitor trends in education and things like, how's the economy going? How
Right.
many children are there? Because that
Right.
has a really big effect on
Hmm.
schools.
Yes.
And we help schools in all of these different areas and all of these different types understand what that might mean for them, because
Hmm.
it differs
Right.
from school to school. So again,
Hmm.
we help bring that forward, and also different research in education,
Hmm.
like about how students learn, um, you
Hmm.
know, brain-based education and things like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And just bring forth the ideas, which our members then talk about on our various platforms and
Right.
channels and conferences and things like that.
Right. Right. And you just had your national conference recently?
Yes. So
Hmm.
every year we have a couple of conferences. The
Hmm.
one we just got done with was our annual conference,
Yes.
which
Okay.
again brings educators from around the world together
Hmm.
and to talk about different ideas in
Right.
education
Okay.
and how they can run their schools better.
Right. Right. And it's a good opportunity to collaborate together and, like you said, share ideas and share vision. And I know we had a couple of our administrators there, as well as our future head of school, who was starting here in July. He was there. And so it was a good opportunity for them to all get together too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of times people come to the conference in groups,
hmm.
say all of the administrators or something like
Hmm.
that, because they have this opportunity to talk about their own school and what's
Right.
so special about it, kind of
Right.
outside of that context of the day-to-day
Right.
operations. Like you can have a moment to breathe and think
Yes.
about where you want to go and how the school is successful and things like
Right.
that.
Right. And sometimes you do have to get away to do all of that because the day to day can just be so demanding and so nonstop, and every day is different. So it's great to have those opportunities to get
Yeah,
away and
and I'm sure
to
parents can
collaborate.
appreciate that.
Yes. Yes, very much so. So tell me, in today's educational landscape, there are so many choices for schools that parents can choose to send their children. Um, what is one of the what is the value that independent schools bring to today's educational landscape? What needs do schools like Brookstone meet that other schools aren't able to do as well?
Sure. Well, I like to say that the biggest benefit of independent schools is actually just the fact that they are so different from one another.
Mm-hmm.
So families, not every school is right for every family,
Right.
but there is a school out there that is perfect for each individual.
Right.
So the just pure variety, I think, is a huge benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And many times the things that independent schools are able to do, they're able to really innovate and to create programming and sort of ways of doing things that other
Mm-hmm.
schools can then adopt.
Right. Right.
Like, oh, here's this physics curriculum that is has every student engaged and
Mm-hmm.
just really, really learning all of the key concepts. And then that might be something that another a public school down the street or a public school in Seattle might want to use.
Right.
Um, so I think that that's a huge benefit.
Mm-hmm.
But what I talk to a lot of parents, and I hear similar themes come forth about what they value in
Mm-hmm.
independent schools. And it's just, time and time again. So one of those has to do with families that just don't really feel like their child is being challenged and they just
Right.
want more for them. They
Right.
want them to be challenged and, pushed to be their best selves.
Right.
And so independent schools are able to do that because they really get to know students and
Right.
learn what motivates them,
Yes.
learn their strengths,
Mm-hmm.
address any challenges they have,
Mm-hmm.
and really help them figure out the right path for them.
Right.
So it's that more individualized attention,
Right.
uh, and a really, a drive to achieve academically that is not present in all schools.
Right. Right.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and another thing that and oftentimes families want to do that within sort of a safe environment, like
Right.
a
Yes.
school that's going to really reflect their values
Yes.
and help nurture the child
Mm-hmm.
in a way that really fits with what they want as parents and as a family.
Right. Exactly.
There are also families that want their children to just be exposed to like every broad idea out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and to really, to meet lots of different people and be exposed to lots of different ideas. So, sometimes these things exist in the same family, but sometimes it's just a different motivator.
Right. Right.
But what I think is a commonality is that they just want what's right for their family.
Right.
Similarly, there are some families who are looking just for a lot more attention for their child. Maybe it's that they need a more specialized program to
Mm-hmm.
help address, dyslexia or
Right. Right.
ADHD or just
Mm-hmm.
more attention.
Right.
Sometimes it's that they didn't feel that their child was um, sort of, or the child might have been having issues socially, and they want a more contained school where the child's really going to get to know people well and
Mm-hmm.
thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of thriving, I think a lot of families or some families are really looking for, okay, how is my child succeed at the next level?
Right.
Whether that's a different kind of high school or
Mm-hmm.
college
Right.
is the primary one. And sometimes that's, it means something different to every person,
Right.
whether that's Ivy League or a very competitive program at the state school, or
Mm-hmm.
it's D1 or no sports. It
Right.
just
Right.
depends on the family.
Right. Exactly. And I think, since we're a 3K through 12th grade school, we are a college preparatory school, and that's part of our mission. And so that is a question at the forefront of everybody's mind is to find the college that is right for each individual student. And
Yeah.
that can look different obviously it will look different for every single child. They're as unique as can be. But when our families start here in kindergarten, very often those are some of the questions, even for parents of kindergartners. I'd
Yeah.
like to know where your seniors are going to school, because that is a report card in some ways on how we have prepared our children for the next level. So
Yeah, and I think there's so much anxiety now as parents.
yes,
No, I'm a parent as well.
right, yes,
I think I think it's in part that the world feels a little bit topsy-turvy right now,
mm-hmm.
and perhaps the path that we as adults went down, it's a little different now, and
Right,
that can be really
yes,
scary.
mm-hmm.
So one of the things I always like to reassure parents is that, it's going to be okay.
Right, yes, yes,
And that in finding that what's best for your own child,
right,
I mean, it's a process of discovery,
right,
and the school really is there at every step of the journey in
mm-hmm.
helping figure out how the child can be their best in that
Right,
moment, and
right,
also thinking about that longer term path,
mm-hmm.
and looking at colleges. And it's not just one right college.
Right, right,
It's really figuring out what's going to help that person, that child, thrive as a person.
exactly.
Um, and I think that that's what's so special about independent schools, is that because they get to know children so well and how
Mm-hmm.
they learn,
Mm-hmm.
that they can really help find that right match,
Right,
and
right,
help sort of launch them into adulthood,
yes,
into careers that are going to be meaningful for them.
right.
And just there are a lot of life skills as well.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Very much so. And I think that's one thing we do really well here at Brookstone. We kind of have, in addition to our mission statement, which includes some core values that we are intent upon building into our children. Um, we have 4 tenets, if you will, that we say are important foundations of Brookstone, and 2 of them are people matter and having a personal approach to education, and that plays out in every level from beginning to end. But the ability for our teachers to know our students so well, inside the classroom and outside the classroom, in a variety of extracurriculars, but that all plays into helping guide them and launch them, like you said, to help them discover, oh, these are my passions, these are my strengths, these are schools that I might not have considered had you not taken the time to say, look, I know you, and I think you're going to really at least want to go look at this school. Just take it
Yeah.
into consideration.
And then
And
also in the application process, it
yes,
really helps to have
yes.
teachers and counselors
Mm-hmm.
who know the students so well. And
Mm-hmm.
as you
Mm-hmm.
said, know them on the playing field
Right.
through clubs as well as in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find are the reasons or the things families most value about Brookstone?
Well, many of the things I feel that you've alluded to, the relationships that teachers are able to form with our students, I feel are just central, not only to academic success, but overall student well-being, and having a smaller class sizes, having multiple teachers involved with the students in different academic areas and fine arts and the athletics. We often say there are just so many eyes on your children here, and you also mentioned being a place that is safe. We want to be a place that is physically safe, like doing our
Yeah.
best to have a physically safe campus, but also that safe place to make mistakes and know there are second chances, and that we are all going to be growing from our mistakes, and that um so having that environment to where, yes, you want the academic success, but you want all the other things built into your children as well. The resilience, the ability to stand on these values, as we're growing them in to these human beings that hopefully, we launch, and we really do believe they will change the world. And that sounds so dramatic and like full of hyperbole, but it's true. And whether they're however big a sphere of influence they find themselves having, we want them to be the leaders in their realms of influence.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think that there's so much to that, like just to having these really strong bonds with people. And as you said, multiple teachers who can say, oh, you know what, you seem to be struggling today. Like,
Right.
what's there's something going on? And to help shape those, that ability to take risks in that safe
Yes.
environment, because we all know we take risks. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we
Right.
succeed, but that's part of the process of
Yes.
growing and learning.
Right.
And it's so important to have that where you can test out new ideas in
Right.
that, safe space
Mhm.
where it's okay that this is
Mhm.
that learning is valued so much
Right.
that it's really celebrated.
Right. Exactly. Um, and I think that's another thing that sets independent schools apart is that it's not just mastery of knowledge, but it is the love of learning. And it is mastery of knowledge. So I'm not downplaying that as well, but it is we do everything we can not to teach to test, if you will.
Yeah.
We want them to love to learn and to be curious and to constantly be growing. And I feel like so many of our schools today, sadly, it is all about that test, whatever that test may be. And not that we're not testing, because we are doing those tests and monitoring the growth, the academic success of our children.
Mhm.
But just realizing there's so much more than just a score on a test on taken on one day is just not reflective of the student that you are.
Yeah, yeah. And furthermore, I mean, with the types of jobs changing in the world and what the world is going to need in 20 years' time could be really quite different than
Right.
what we are
Exactly.
experiencing now. So
Mhm.
we really want kids to be able to have that flexibility
Right.
to adapt and to learn and, as
Right.
you said, to lead in these new roles that might not
Right.
exist now. So how
Exactly.
can we do that?
Mhm.
Well, if we are totally driven by, just what's on yesterday's test,
Right.
it's not
Right.
necessarily going to prepare them as well as they could be. We want to create learners who, again, have that flexibility and that drive to
Right.
keep learning.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is, just a fundamental goal of ours is how to create that mindset, if you will, that growth mindset at every level, to be curious and to take those risks and to have the teachers who encourage that.
Yeah,
And we do. That's one thing I love about our teachers. And we've had a lot of teachers come from other schools, from public schools in the area, and we are blessed here in Columbus with a lot of really strong public schools.
yeah,
But they will say, you cannot do what we are doing here at other schools. It's
yeah,
not that people don't have the desire, but you don't have the framework to allow teachers the flexibility and the independence to teach as they desire to in their classrooms sometimes.
yeah,
And
yeah. And in these ways that really elicit so much excitement
right,
and mastery,
right,
content
exactly.
mastery and content
Yes,
knowledge in
yes,
ways that are really very well integrated into long-term thinking. It's not
right,
just what can I memorize for
right,
2 o'clock today.
right,
It's things that become part of larger ideas
right.
and larger, deeper thinking.
Yes, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. So looking at my other questions that I had wanted to ask you, a big one that we are all talking about in schools constantly is how we have changed over the last 3 years as a result of COVID. What trends are you seeing in the independent world? How have you seen independent education change since COVID?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, I should say that COVID took on so many different forms, or the
Yes,
pandemic
yes,
hit schools so differently based
true,
on where they are located
true,
and, where I'm located.
right,
It was, I'm sure, quite different than where you are.
true,
Uh,
yes,
but there are some similarities across all schools, and one is that I think many schools, were really forced
right,
to adopt technology,
yes,
particularly the very early moments of the pandemic. And it was, in some schools, it was smooth sailing. It was a little rocky,
Right.
just as for many people in their business life. But I think that schools then really became quite good at using certain technology.
Yes.
And while it may not be their preferred mode, they
Right.
might not find it, say, the best form of teaching to
Right.
teach, on Zoom, or
Right.
to use some technologies are right for certain circumstances and not right for others.
Yes.
But a lot of schools have found that they were able to engage families in new
Mm-hmm.
ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, like parent-teacher conferences
Mm-hmm.
using technology has
Right.
been one that has been a lot more widespread now. Uh,
Interesting. Yes.
Similarly, meetings of the parent association in some cases
Mm-hmm.
allows more people who might have different hours, work
Right.
different hours, to attend the meetings and get engaged with the
Mm-hmm.
school. But one really interesting thing that I've seen is a return, or even an amplification in some cases, of people doing things in person. And part of the reason for that, I think, is that so many people felt really isolated,
Uh-huh.
that really just want to connect go back to some in-person events.
Right. Right.
So that's interesting. But I think, I don't know, what have you seen that's changed at Brookstone?
Well, it's funny that some of the things, and actually I should have given myself this question, given it more thought, but we were so grateful that we were able to stay open during
Yeah.
COVID. Um, and the modifications that we had to make, nobody loved them, but
Yeah.
we were able to meet in person for that 2021 school year. And that was
Yeah.
really, really a blessing. And even when everything went crazy at the first part of the spring, that we were able to react so quickly and
Yeah.
shift online so quickly. Not only credit to our administration for being able to do that, but again, it just showed the benefit of an independent school, if you will, because there was no red tape that we had to work through. We just went online and we figured it out, and our teachers were so quick to respond and to adapt. And like you said, it might not be everybody's preferred way. It certainly wasn't everybody's preferred way,
Mhm.
but we were able to finish out the school year, and that and
And a lot
was
of schools weren't.
right,
A
exactly.
lot of schools really struggled with
Mhm,
that. I think that was
mhm,
one of the huge differences, and
mhm.
many people were very, frustrated with that.
Right, right. And so, yeah, so we're really grateful that even though, like I said, we wouldn't ever, nobody ever wants to go back to that, but
Yeah.
it's still something that we think if we ever had to go through something like that again, we're prepared and we're ready,
And
and
even
we'll
if
do
it'd be
it
a
better
snow
next time.
day.
Right,
You know?
exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
so we learned a lot, but I do think this year more than ever, we are seeing, like you said, that people are wanting to just to get back in person. We were able to have some events this year in a bigger way that over the past couple of years had still been modified a bit. And
Mhm.
so it's just a blessing to be able to all gather again together in big community ways.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
does still no, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry.
Mhm.
Another thing I've seen that I don't know if you have experienced is that I think that because things were so different for, however long during COVID, that many people realized what they valued most about traditions or things that they've
Right.
done for a long time. So
Right.
it may not be as intuitive that, what's changed since COVID? Well, what stayed the same since COVID?
Right.
And I think that it
That is so true.
enabled is perhaps not the right word, but it forced people to say, you know what, this really mattered. We're going to make extra effort to focus on this part, or to bring this part
Right.
back.
Right.
And again, that varies so much from school to school.
Right.
Did you find any of that? Like, were there any things about the old way that that you really treasured?
Right. Well, you're exactly right that I feel like some of the school traditions that we valued we really missed, really, really missed. And one that we had to modify in such a way in 2020 was our graduation ceremony. And although it will stand unique in history as the most original graduation ever, and boy, we went all out having a drive-through graduation and cars decorated and having kids come out and receive their diploma in a very socially distant manner. And we were so proud of ourselves, and we were so grateful to be able to celebrate these kids. It was just an amazing class of kids. But then when we had graduation 2021, the parents of the 2020 graduates, it just kind of hit them. Wow, my kid missed this, because it's such an incredible ceremony. And so I get teary even thinking about it. And so realizing what an amazing experience it is to have our unique traditional graduation, that is so beautiful and so honoring to these kids. It made us appreciate it all that much more, and to realize what a really incredible event it is. And so that one comes to mind, but there are others as well. But that one, it took us a year to really realize how special it was. Because we had all just been in survival mode and did 2020 really well and the best we possibly could, but it still wasn't what we now know it is.
And I'm sure a lot of teachers feel the same way about, lessons that they did that were good, but not that, exceptional way that they're able to connect with students, and really engage them.
Yes.
That's
Myra, I'm realizing as my time is clicking by that that I need to ask you some of these other questions before my Zoom time is going to fade away quickly. But I know that we had talked, you're in media and you do a lot of reading. And one thing we are really big about here at Brookstone is being able to equip our parents with resources that they could use that would benefit them. So I'd love for you to share some of the book recommendations you have.
Yes, I really do read a tremendous amount, and I always love to think about how books might be helpful to other people as well.
Yes.
So one of the books that I would recommend is called The Self-Driven Child: The Science and Sense of Giving Your Kids More Control Over Their Lives. And I know that might sound frightening to some people, particularly if your kids are at that age where they're testing boundaries, which is probably every age, but the theory that the authors, whose names are William Stixrud and Ned Johnson, the theory that they posit is that, we really want to give our kids a lot more, we want them to be intrinsically motivated and to be able to succeed long-term in their lives, not just succeed on tomorrow's test. So the idea is that by giving them more control over, in this structured framework, that it allows them to test out things and to become to try out and to learn those skills that we want them to have for adulthood. So that's one that I
love that. I love that. I haven't read it, but I will put that on my list.
One for folks with younger kids is called Raising Kids: Your Essential Guide to Everyday Parenting. And that's by Sherry Wong and Olaf Jorgensen. And Olaf, he actually goes by the name Oli in among the community. He is head of school, and so he partnered with a counselor, social worker, to tackle all of these parenting components that I think are particularly challenging when you have younger kids or have multiple kids, things like scheduling. And he just kind of breaks things down into much more practical steps that I think helps people figure out, I'm having a problem here. What can I do? Or setting up those routines that really make things, smooth sailing. For the parents of the older set,
Mhm.
There's a book called The Emotional Lives of Teenagers,
Ooh.
Raising Connected, Capable, and Compassionate Adolescents.
Oh, I love that.
And that's by Lisa D'Amour. So
Mhm.
Lisa D'Amour has written a number of books about teenage girls and
Mhm.
how they can become their best selves, and some of the
Mhm.
challenges that kids face, say social media,
Right.
uh, social pressures, things like
Right.
that. And
Yes.
so this book really looks at adolescents and how their brains are developing and how parents can really
Mhm.
best support them
Mm,
and again help them make those good decisions and become healthy adults.
that's awesome. Uh,
Um, can I have one more?
yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead. Yes.
One more, and this is for families who are getting ready for the college years.
Yes.
There's a book called Who Gets In and Why? A
Mm.
Year Inside College Admissions.
Woo.
And that's by Jeffrey Solingo.
Mm.
And I think that can be can provide some information of about a process that can seem so frightening and
Right.
so just unknown, and give you
Mm.
a little bit of background on like how it happens,
Right.
you know,
Right.
so that ideally you can feel more confident as you're helping your child go through that process.
Right. Mm. It is not for the faint of heart for sure. It's a big process. So,
Yes.
and I'm so grateful for our college counselors who help us through that. But I think that sounds so interesting because that is one of the questions that, you kind of try to play that game sometimes, especially if your child didn't get in the school they wanted to get in, but you look at other people on paper and you're like, but they got in, but why not? I mean, I just,
Yeah.
all the questions that come up. So
Yeah.
that sounds like a great resource.
Yeah, and I think that again, it can help reduce some of the anxiety and
Right.
also ideally help you focus on what is so special about your own child and
Right.
how they're gonna change the world and
Right.
be a
Exactly.
good adult and
Exactly. I
do all the
know.
great things we want them to do.
It's so true. Well, I love that. Well, those are great recommendations for covering all the gamut, all ranges of parenting. And we have all of that here at Brookstone. So,
Yeah.
again, it's whether you have a 3-year-old here or an 18-year-old, parenting each stage will bring those different questions. So I love those resources
Yeah.
that we can offer our parents for sure.
Yeah, and
Um,
I mean, that's one thing that I love about independent schools is that
Mhm.
it's really a partnership between
Yes.
the families and the school.
Yes.
And, it's
Mhm.
we all want the same thing, and that's,
Right.
for the child to learn and grow and thrive.
Right.
And it takes both of us,
Right.
both
Right.
the school and the families.
Yeah.
And the more we can work together, I think the more it benefits the kids. And so I really
Completely
love
agree.
the support that independent schools provide, and just the partnership. I really
Right.
truly feel that partnership.
Right.
Um, so
I do too, 100%. And I think that's one reason our parents choose Brookstone is because you are choosing a partner. I mean, you are choosing people to invest in the lives of your children and to pour into them for years and years. And so it is a partnership. And one as a parent that I have been so grateful for the people and the teachers and the faculty here for what they have done to my own children, what they have poured into my own children, the
yeah,
investment they have made in the lives of my children. And so we thank you for your work as well,
thank
for
you.
providing that research and constantly allowing a platform for us as an educational institution to continue to grow and to learn from the work that you guys have been doing. So
And
really
to
grateful for
share
that.
what you're doing. I think that that's
Yeah.
such an important part, is for others to hear what you're doing at Brookstone
Yes.
and to learn from that. I think that
Yes.
that's something that people might not realize is
Yes.
that it really in an association like NAIS, it's so
Hmm.
critical that
Hmm.
we can learn from one another. So we
Right.
appreciate you
Right.
being members and contributing and
Yes.
helping
Well,
others.
thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. And it does take a village of all of us together. And I love, being able to hear, like you said, what schools are doing in other parts of the country, because regionally things look different in independent schools. So it really is a great thing to be able to close that connection gap and to
Yeah,
learn from each other for sure. So, well, Myra, just thank you so much for being here with us
sure.
today. And I look forward to maybe we can have another conversation another day as we all continue to grow and learn together.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.